Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our RTS podcast series. Today, I'm with Eugene Pickett, our pre-sales cloud architect. I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you, Eugene, about some of the trends amongst the different cloud providers today. You have worked amongst AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. What are some of the biggest trends in cloud adoption that you're seeing today?
Well, I think one would be hybrid, right, in multi-cloud environments. So a lot of clients are making sure they go that way. They might have a combination of AWS, Azure, as well as on-premise. So that's one big factor. Another one would be AI. They're very heavily invested in AI, whether it be for monitoring their systems, it could be for also taking a look at scalability, in terms of performance, as well as just looking at it in terms of costs, using things like cost optimization in terms of AI to take a look at a system and taking a look at CPU memory to make sure it's efficient, to make sure they're not over provisioned, they're not using too much, which saves a lot too. So those are some for the most part. There are many of them are investing in also serverless architecture, where they use managed services rather than actually keyboard hands-on. So a lot of that too is the trend that it's going into.
Are there any platform specific strengths that customers should be paying attention to?
It's individualized, right? So if you got a healthcare company and maybe they need to share data or something like that, they would use something like AWS, right? Data Exchange, which allows you to use your pharmacy data or any kind of medical data, right? It could be something in terms of sensors, right? So if you got equipment, they're using sensors, they would be using something like IoT, for their sensors, right? Device management to actually use those particular type of tools to do remote taking care of their equipment. So those are some. So it's very industry specific in terms of what they're going to use.
What's one of the most complex cloud architecture challenges you've solved recently, and what did that solution look like?
I think it would be pretty much financial for the most part. A lot of companies, when they're talking about migrating, one of the concerns they have is actually cost, right? Like one client, they're migrating out of Rackspace and they're moving to AWS. So they needed the cost to go down. So one of the things that we did was make sure we implement tagging. We made sure we used cost optimization in terms of AI technology to take a look at it to make sure that when we actually migrate them over, they won't be over provisioned. We would migrate them under, looking at their utilization. So we would look at things like that. Also, we kind of set up what you would call budget actions, where we would actually set it up that if, say, developers go over, in terms of costs, a budget action would actually pretty much trigger an event. And once it's triggered that event, it would not allow them to go over that cost, right? So we implemented those kind of solutions as well. So that tends to work. We also kind of looked at savings plans as well as cost explorers and other things, which actually helped tremendously and reduced quite a bit of their cost in terms of migrating, as well as in terms of the cost in general overall as it relates to where they were migrating from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that kind of gets me into the next
Okay.
question, which is around cost. How are we helping clients balance between innovation and cost whenever they're looking for their cloud solutions and their
It's
strategy?
it kind of starts with, for instance, say if they're migrating somewhere, the first thing is really on premise. Just by them being on premise, they have to over provision. They have to use too much CPU or memory just for something that only takes 5 minutes, right? Worth of resources, to bump up. So we make sure that we actually do utilization of what they're doing on premise and use other technologies like auto scaling. For instance, they maybe have to use too much memory or storage, that kind of thing, as it relates to them being on premise. But with auto scaling, for instance, on premise, it might take 2 minutes, to scale up. Whereas on premise, where if we move to cloud, where we use something like auto scaling. And with that, instead of using an over provision, they use auto scaling for that minute or so, which reduces a lot of the cost too
Right.
as well. Yeah.
So, kind of moving towards the AI topic, how do you see AI and automation impacting cloud architecture today?
Tremendously
Yeah,
from monitoring, them using it to monitor, using stuff like cost optimization to monitor. Also using other things like scalability, in terms of load balancing and auto scaling, using it in terms of equipment, using it in terms of using AI for different sensors and device management to remotely do it, even from training models. So it's also using it just for customer base, right? You got different customers, they want to know what's going on, with their customer clients, well, they want to know what's going on with their customers. So taking a look at that, getting ahead of the game and seeing the trends with their customers using AI, they can, adjust pretty quickly to the market.
right.
So
It's a much more
yeah,
proactive approach.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So, if a CIO came to you and asked for, your perspective, some advice on their cloud modernization journey, what kind of advice would you give?
Well, the first thing I would ask them is why. Why do you want to go to cloud? What is your use case? What are you trying to do? Or, it could be that, they're actually trying to get out of a data center, right? They got a contract coming up, or they could be performance. And based on what they tell me, the next thing we would do is do an assessment. We'll take a look at their data centers, see the applications in their data centers, see exactly how they integrate it, and then based on that, come up with a plan to where we're going to migrate them. And sometimes they have something in mind. They already know they want to go to Azure, or they already know they want to go to AWS. But if that's not the case and they want us to help them decide, we may, introduce different tools like Cloudomize, where we would take a look at their environment and it will give them a strategic saving plans and everything, give them cost of how much it will cost for all the providers, whether it's Azure, whether it's AWS, and they could select it that way based on cost. So, in to make a long story short, after we actually do this assessment, we usually show them how it looks pretty much on prem and how it would look to be, after we migrated to AWS, where everything would kind of lay in for storage, backup, the works. So,
That's great advice. And it
yeah,
sounds like you'd really be setting them up for success.
yeah, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the insights today. And thank you for joining our podcast, Eugene. It was great to have you.